Hey everybody, Brett Rice with coreVISION Financial Group coming to you today with another video in our series on financial topics. Today we're joined by Grant Reeves on the podcast to talk about senior scams and ways we can avoid those. So again, coreVISION, we're building a library on financial topics. If you go to our YouTube page and subscribe, you'll be notified every time we post a video. So like I said, today we're joined by Grant Reeves, Chief Compliance Officer here at coreVISION. So, Grant, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, as Brett said, I'm compliance officer here. I'm also an attorney. That's a little bit more where, frankly, I come into some of these situations. Anybody can be a target of these scams, but it seems seniors are particularly vulnerable.
And I think everybody's probably received a scam email, a scam text, or, got a phone call. Right, where somebody, is not a legitimate business and somebody's trying to scam you out of money. So today I think we're trying to focus more towards seniors, though, and what we can do to help protect them. Let's talk about, what's some of the basics of how we protect our senior family members and what we can do to help them.
A lot of helping seniors is for anyone, is getting a plan in place ahead of time. Unfortunately, as you get older, things may start to slip, and once they start to slip, you're not going to know they're slipping, which is a horrible cycle to be in. But I have clients that are like, oh, I don't need that in place yet. And I'm like, I know you don't need that in place yet, but you're not going to know when you do. And that's where the issue comes in. So a lot of it is planning ahead of time and getting a support network built around you to make sure that you're going to be protected and your assets are going to be protected and your wishes followed if you get to a point where you are having issues or when you are potentially vulnerable to scammers, having that system in place and built up ahead of time.
I've experienced this, some form of this recently. I helped my dad with his finances and that stuff. He received a check in the mail that it said, it looked just like a legitimate check for $500. My dad took it to the bank, was going to cash it and deposit it. And the bank was like, this is not a legitimate check. You can't cash that. And he couldn't understand why the bank wouldn't cash this check. Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out they wanted you to call them, and it was like not a refinancing thing, but you cash that check and you basically are entering into a contract with them when you call them and agree, to this thing that they mailed you. And my dad just could not understand why he couldn't cash that $500 check because it looked like a real check. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was ready to take their $500 and he just didn't understand it. And I was like, it's a scam, Dad. It is and it isn't. They're just trying to get you to enroll in their program. Right. And it's like you were just talking about. My dad's 84 years old and he just didn't understand the methods these people were using in order to get him to agree to a contract with them. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, the bank said, hey, this isn't a check. We can't do anything with this. He brought it back to me and said, hey, I want to cash this. And I was like, that's not a real, Dad, that's junk. You need to throw that away. You see that with the extended auto warranties. Like they'll mail you stuff saying, your car warranty's out of service, I guess, or whatever. It's out of effect, I guess, or whatever. They want you to enroll into a new one. My dad's like, oh my gosh, I need car, and it's like, you don't need that. Mm-hmm. So it's very easy for senior people to get caught up in that and think, oh, well, I don't have a warranty on my car. I want a warranty on my car.
That sort of ties into one very important aspect is independent verification. In a lot of aspects, if you get something and it doesn't seem right, take a step back and try and find out independently if that's correct or not. Check on your actual car warranty in that situation. If it's particularly if it's something that says, call me back at this number, email me back, or reply to the email.
Click this link.
Yes. Don't do that. Go out on an independent search on your own, independent Google search. Make sure you're going to the legitimate page. Get an independent contact, and then maybe call. Say it's the bank. Call the bank at the number you found on Google, and just ask for the person who claimed to call you, and find out if that is a legitimate person at the bank.
Right.
Whereas if you just automatically call back, who knows where that call is going to? If you click on the link, who knows where that link's going to? And you have to be careful. I've even seen some things where some of the scammers have paid for some Google search results.
Yeah.
So that the page at the top on the page searching will look like the actual page, but when you look at the address of it, it's not the actual page for the actual site.
Scammers have become more sophisticated in how they're doing these scams. I did some training on it the other day, and I almost couldn't tell. I mean, they put the web link of a real web address and then a fake one. And I mean, I looked at that thing, I bet, for 2 minutes, and I was like, I don't see a difference. And they had put a 0, the number 0 in place of an O. Mm-hmm. You couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And I was just like, later on down on the page, they pointed out the differences. And I was like, I didn't even notice that. So it's very easy to quickly look at a link and be like, oh, yeah, that's legitimate, and it not be.
Yeah.
Let's talk about building a trusted support network. You talk about having trusted contacts, somebody for elderly people. Like, I go through my dad's mail. He doesn't open it, and then we sit there and we open it together, and I kind of sort through it. But my dad, even at that point, will be like, well, why are you not giving me that pile of mail to look at? And I'm like, it's all junk. Mm-hmm. It's all ads and, people offering things that you don't need. Establish a power of attorney and choose a preferred guardian. Let's talk about those things real quick.
So, yeah, and actually taking a little bit of step back, when we say trusted contact, that is actually a defined term. We use that here where you designate a trusted contact on an account. A lot of times people will kind of want to skip over that or be hesitant, but that also helps us quite a bit because if something is suspicious, then we're going to know to reach out to somebody. And again, that's one of those things where if we think it's suspicious, if we think somebody might be having some cognitive decline, that person probably is not going to know it by that point. And at that point, it's going to be more challenging to fix. And that's where having that trusted contact in place to pick up and go, hey, something called or so-and-so called and requested money, but this doesn't seem quite right. We're a little concerned about this one where you've got somebody that can go, okay, let me go talk to them or let me check in on it. Having that trusted contact, that really helps us to provide that extra level of security.
Yep.
That person's not going to have trading authority or anything like that here, but it's going to give us a little bit of a security blanket in a situation like that. Same thing on getting power of attorney in place. What I have happen frequently is someone will have put off doing estate planning, and one thing they forget about that often just goes along with estate planning is setting up medical directives and powers of attorney. Those documents are important because they put who you want to be in charge if you are incapacitated, if you have a cognitive decline issue. They're a very simple way to do that where you can get out in front of it and have somebody that's there to speak on your behalf that you trust. Because the problem we'll run into a lot of times is if somebody has not done that, they get to a situation where it's, things don't seem quite right. A family member is concerned about them. As an attorney, I can't ethically have you execute a power of attorney if I already believe or know that you're in cognitive decline.
Right.
Because I have to, part of the process is that I have to understand that you understand what you're doing and have the capacity to do that. So at that point, then we're stuck with going to a guardianship proceedings. It's not the end of the world if you have to do that, but it's a whole lot simpler to just sign a document, have it properly executed, and move on with things, stick it in the safe until you need it. If it does get bad enough, we can go the guardianship route and get that set up. And sometimes even with the power of attorney, we may need to do that. But usually if we can get those directives in place ahead of time, because again, I can't stress enough, you don't know when you've gone into cognitive decline because unfortunately that part of your brain has slipped as well as far as being able to process and you'll probably think you're fine and won't understand you're making bad decisions.
That's been my experience as well. Is when you get to this point, they're just like, no, I don't understand. Mm-hmm. Like my father has days where he's like, I don't understand. I can't figure it out. And when you get to that point, then you can't have them sign those documents.
Right.
Right. Because you're like, no, I legitimately know that you're having cognitive decline.
Right.
And we can't have you making these decisions now.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about recognizing and avoiding some of the scams. Mm-hmm. Right? You want to talk about some of the ones you got on the list here?
One, and unfortunately, I actually had a family member of a client that got caught in this. It was a phone call about a grandchild of this person. They called the grandmother, and in this case, they were trying to convince them that the grandchild was in jail and needed bail money. The key things to do in those type situations, again, is independent verification. Try and contact another family member that might need to know what's going on. Get a callback number for that person that's calling you. If it's legitimately somebody trying to get bail to get someone out of jail, they're going to give you a phone number to call back. If they refuse to give you a phone number to call back, it's probably a scam. Another thing you can do is if someone calls, this is going to probably become more of a problem with AI because we can spoof voices at this point. Have things in place or think of things that only you would know in your family, not things that have been entered in the internet, not even really any of these security questions, stuff that people wouldn't know. A few things I think of: if you repainted your room in middle school and it was a wacky color, that's probably not going to be online, but probably everybody in the family remembers you doing that. If there was some crazy event on a vacation, one night we were playing a board game, and my mother started chanting something randomly that got stuck in all of our heads. And whenever we hear anything related to that, everybody in the family instantly thinks of my mother chanting. And so that one would probably be a pretty simple one in my family, because I think all four of us would know exactly what they were talking about immediately.
Right. And when you talk about AI, being able to spoof people's voices and stuff, especially like us doing these podcasts, the technology exists. They could take clips of this show and use it to replicate our voice. Yeah. So that's something scary that's, looking at scams moving forward, is they may be able to replicate our voice 100% and would totally fool anybody, no matter how much we talk to them, using our voice. So it's important to have some secondary layer of verification, like you're talking about, a specific family event that you can reference that, if this person's unable to answer that, you could be like, okay, that's a flag. Yeah. I need to take a look at that. I need to call somebody else and say, hey, what's going on?
Right.
We talk about that. We talk about Medicare, Social Security, and IRS scams. That's something that's, you hear a lot about. I'm going to keep using my dad as an example because he is an elderly citizen. I mean, he gets IRS scams, Social Security scam phone calls almost every single day. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, he's been getting them for a long time, so he knows now you don't talk to those people.
Right.
So I think it's important for our elderly family members to understand and, have that conversation, like you said earlier, prior to any cognitive decline, to reinforce we don't give out this information over the phone.
Mm-hmm. If they're legitimate, they're not going to pressure you to give information over the phone. Almost universally, they're going to send you a letter and say you have so many days to respond. At least that will be the initial point of contact, and then you can work with your team of advisors to sort out to do whatever you need to do for that issue.
But having those conversations today could prevent you from, having to try to unravel a mess later on. Mm-hmm. Next item here, strengthen digital security.
Yeah, and I think this one, anybody can fall victim to it. I've almost done it. I actually have clicked on a link that a good antivirus program saved me. But particularly as you age, you may be a little more uncomfortable with technology. It's just not as innate as it is to some other people.
And it's moving forward so fast.
Right. And the scammers are moving forward so fast. I mean, some of your best bets on that are preliminarily build that platform behind you. Make sure you've got a good antivirus software. They have traditionally antivirus software kind of looked at known viruses and checked for them. But now they have antivirus software that's more sophisticated that will actually pick up patterns. They'll pick up that the computer is starting to do something bad and lock it down. That's what I was laughing when I fell for one of these almost. I thought it was a legitimate email from a client. I clicked on a link and bam, my computer immediately locked down from the antivirus. The antivirus picked up immediately that I'd clicked on something wrong, and it started to attempt a bad process, and that luckily having that good antivirus program in there saved me and locked it up, and I didn't have any issues with it. Same thing as far as making sure your spam filters are set up to watch for phishing. As far as that helps give you a baseline, because then you're not having to process as much of that on your own. A lot of it's happening automatically in the background to get rid of those before they even get to you.
We're talking about seniors, trying to help prevent fraud on them. But you and I both personally have experiences where you've clicked on a link. Oh, yeah. I clicked on a text message link, looked like a UPS link, said I had some lost mail. I needed to send them 26 cents. I clicked on it, filled it out, and then had fraud all over my debit card. So this can happen to anybody.
Oh, yeah.
But we're saying that older people are just going to be more susceptible to it because the technology is advancing so fast. So this applies to everybody, but we're talking about, hey, those loved ones we have that may be more elderly are going to be more susceptible to it. So this does apply to everybody. I mean, I'm in my 50s. I should be pretty up on the technology, but I'm still susceptible to clicking on a bad link.
Right. And like I say, the scammers advance faster than the technology to block them, it seems like.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunately only be more of a challenge going forward. Also, as far as best practices, that's where if you get a suspicious email, don't click on it. If you did click on it and you think it looks suspicious, but it might be legitimate, that's where you get back to your checking independent sources.
Yeah.
Go search, go look up somewhere another method of contacting whatever that entity is and try and track back through that way rather than going through whatever is there in the email.
At no point did I ever think, how'd the USPS get my cell phone number? I just clicked on the link. I had a missing package. I legitimately had a missing package. I said, oh, this is it. Never clicked on in my brain. How'd they get my cell phone number?
Yeah.
I never included that anywhere.
Yeah, we had one as well that it was a website purchase and looked and found a good price, I think it was a Google shopping search, found a good price, found the item we wanted, went clear through, put all the information, click submit. Nothing happened. And at that point, we're like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
why did nothing happen? Sure enough, about a week later, we had a fraudulent test charge on the credit card. The credit card company caught it, locked it up, and then we had to go through all the rigmarole replacing the credit card. But yeah, it's getting more challenging.
Talking about planning for the future, like what can people do now to help themselves out in the future as far as avoiding scams?
Again, it's taking these steps ahead of time so that you're prepared, having a plan in place, getting your computer and phone set up so that it's got the security on it, getting those trusted people in place, having discussions with them to let them know that they may be your power of attorney. In that power of attorney, you probably will designate the party that you want to be your guardian if you would ever need a guardian. So that's another step in there. Let those people know that they are that person in case someone contacts them or in case they start to see that there's an issue, that they know where to find the power of attorney document if they needed to start using it, things like that. If they get a call from us, for instance, and we say you're designated as the trusted contact, it's good if they already knew they were the trusted contact because then they're going to understand a little bit more what's going on and expect that. But just taking those steps ahead of time to be prepared and having a plan in place, both because it's hard to deal with it in the moment. If somebody is calling and saying your grandchild's in jail, you may be panicked. Right. But if you know you have a routine in place and a system to deal with that helps. And then also if you do hit a decline, somebody will be there to step in to help you, to protect your assets. So, I mean, I've had some people that ended up in pretty tragic situations because they did not have that support network around them. It's pretty challenging as far as finding someone to take in and or step in and take on that role at that point.
Regularly monitoring bank accounts and credit cards. Something I did was I froze my dad's credit. I mean, he doesn't use credit at all. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason for him to, have it unfrozen. Right. So I just froze it and just said, okay, now we don't need to worry about this.
Yep.
I think that's an option people should consider just because it takes that away of, well, I got to look at his credit card statement every month. And there's ways for them to get around you even getting a credit card statement, right? If they can access your card and your account, they can change your mailing address. You'll never even get a credit card statement and not even know that people are, charging stuff on your card. So I just eliminated it all by freezing his credit. He doesn't use it, so it's not an issue of unfreezing it, going back and forth and that. But I just found that was the easiest way to manage that. Yeah, I think there's some key points in here. Having the conversations with your elderly family members about being aware of don't share your social security number online. Don't give away your bank information. Don't do any of those things. Having that designated person for them to call and say, hey, look, I just received a phone call from Social Security. saying that my benefit is being canceled if I don't, provide banking information or something. Social Security is not going to reach out to you that way. Like you said, they're going to mail you a letter and then you're going to reach out to them. But again, do some research, have a Social Security phone number that you can verify instead of using a number someone gives you. All of those type of things. I think having those conversations as early as you possibly can is a key to that. Well, Grant, thank you for joining us today. I think this is a huge topic. I think it's something that as we move forward with scammers getting more sophisticated, unfortunately, we're probably going to see more and more cases of. But thanks for joining us. It's a great topic. Again, everybody, Brett Rice, coreVISION Financial Group. Go to our YouTube page and subscribe so you're notified when we post a new video. Contact information will be at the end of this video. Reach out if you have any questions. Thanks for taking the time to watch our video.